bottle opener? Oh, whatever, my keys downstairs. That was underwhelming. Champagne. It's not good champagne, but it's champagne. Oh God, that's dreadful. Oh my God. Okay. So that's over. Today's January 1st. I was planning to make this yesterday, and it's funny how all of a sudden I'm like, oh, year in review, and now I'm like, it was last year. Why am I still talking about last year? Let me grab my list. So I think it's been quite a year for everyone. I think that's the least we can say. But I kind of wanted to start getting into this anyway, as far as like, this is what happened this year. And it just so happens that this year was shit. But, you know, I did a lot of good things this year. You know, this was my first year not in school. I graduated last May. So while I kind of had time used to being an adult in 2019, 2020 was the first year that I, start to finish, there was no homework. There was no, here's what you have to do. And there are pros and cons of that. I started the year off with a lot of goals. I had about 6. Some of them are kind of like resolutions. Some of them are not. I did a lot of them. So at the start of the year last year, on New Year's Eve, 2019, I worked at the liquor store. I came home at 9. 3 of my friends and my SO came over, our friends. I started the year drunk, which I didn't do this year, now that it's January 1st. I was not drunk yesterday, but I was with my friends. I was expecting to kind of end the year with a much bigger party. January 1st last year, I was babysitting for this family called the Colemans, and I got to their house, and on their fridge was this sign, and I love that. I wonder if they would agree that they did that. One of my New Year's resolutions that I immediately threw out the window when the pandemic started was I wanted to read the news every day. I bought both a New York Times and a Washington Post subscription. Washington Post keeps wanting to be like, come back, we'll give you a month for $1. But I really just gave that up. Like, I remember I was babysitting them pretty regularly, and I would do a lot of sitting at the dining room table, going through my emails, reading the Washington Post, reading about coronavirus, applying to jobs. Because I was just working at the liquor store and babysitting. I wasn't doing anything that I wanted to do. Immediately when the pandemic started, I said, I don't need to do that anymore. I had a lot of trouble with my car in January. The battery would start, but the engine wouldn't start. In February, I made my film. I thought that was going to be the defining moment of 2020. Was that all I could think about for the 2 months leading up to my film was, oh my God, I got to make my film. I got to balance these actors. I got to balance this crew. And it was like a really small setup. It was a film that I wrote about a year before. I just messaged someone who had assistant directed a film I worked on, who's a friend of mine. And I said, I want to make this film. I want you to be my assistant director. And she was like, yeah, sounds good. The film takes place outdoors in the winter. So it was pretty pivotal that I film it before it started to get warm. I got people on backstage, and I got all my film friends from various departments. And it was awesome. All the pieces came together. The stars sort of aligned. Filming was great, except for the first day when it was fucking freezing. It was so cold. And then we ended up moving some scenes around. I met some amazing people there. My actors were amazing. And I was really in my element. I had never directed anything before. And it was awesome. I felt really good. And then I got into editing, and I hated everything about it. Like, the film was great. The acting was great. But it was just this trudge. And I think it was partly that when it really picked up, I was in quarantine. So I was like, this is my work. And therefore it became that thing that I wanted to procrastinate. In February, I went to see 2 shows on Broadway. It was great. My mom and I saw The Phantom of the Opera, which I had never seen before, but she's seen it like 20 times. And I also saw Jagged Little Pill, and I fucking loved it. It was so good. I remember my friends were fighting in the group chat that day, and I just didn't want to deal with them. When the first song picked up, which is such a good song, Not the very first song, the real first song, which is All I Really Want. I was just like, yes, I need this right now. Like, I don't want to deal with my friend's bullshit. And it was great. And then I went back to my friends afterward and it was fine. But like, I also saw a lot of movies in January, February. Baz and I went to a lot of movies because we both had A-List at that time. My dad gave me A-List subscription for Christmas and I only got to use it for like 3 months. And I hope that movies are still like around soon when we can go back to them. I also worked on a really cool independent documentary about Bon Jovi. I almost had the opportunity to go to Bon Jovi's house, and just as we were planning it, just as it came up on it, it was like, hey, he doesn't want people in his house, the pandemic is happening. But one thing I did get to work on was the branch of the documentary that dealt with the keyboardist, and got to meet him. He was awesome. He was working on the Diana musical, and so it was through like a referral from someone I worked with at the New York Film Academy. And so I was just a PA. I just had to like move equipment and like swap lenses. It was 3 of us. I got free lunch out of it. I got $100 for the day. I got to meet the keyboardist for Bon Jovi. And I got to see the behind the scenes of the Diana musical before it was even out. I was kind of working on an ASMR channel too at that point, and I picked that up a little bit during the deep quarantine. To sort of supplement my time, like I said, I was just babysitting and working at a liquor store. I was doing nothing creative. Then in March, everything went to shit, as we all know. I kept up working for almost a month because I worked in what was considered an essential business, a liquor store, and was really resentful of that. I just kept being like, well, we just gotta wait, and then they're just gonna shut down liquor stores, and no, they never did. So me and my mom left in April, but in March it was like, I was reading about it more and more because I was still doing that reading the news thing. And I remember that first day where they were like, you should social distance. And my family was supposed to meet for dinner at my grandma's house. And I was like, should I not do that? Should I not be doing that? My mom was like, I respect that if you don't want to go. She and my brother went anyway. But I remember calling my dad and being like, should I not go? And I didn't. I met up with my friend at the park to play Frisbee. We were like, that's something we can do from a distance. So we played Frisbee. We were kind of walking around the parks in the area. It was still kind of cold, but... And then we went to Baz's house and Baz's family wouldn't let them go. Like, our friend... who was my friend's girlfriend, the one who I was playing catch with, had just come back from Ireland and had to quarantine for 2 weeks. And he was like, oh, she's going to be so sad that she can't see me. And it ended up being a lot longer than that. I remember one of the last days of my job, I went to my dad's house. My dad's girlfriend was staying at his house for a while. We watched Contagion. I don't know if that was stupid but I remember coming back being like, oh, I've had a long day at work. I'm going to watch Contagion. And then I remember the day that I quit my job. It was April 4th. That was my last day of work. My dad every week was like, when are you guys going to leave the liquor store? I don't think it's safe. And we kept putting it off until we were like, all right. So we quit. I remember sitting on the couch. It was April. It was just starting to get warm. Bought some alcohol that I ended up not drinking. Like, I had this thing of like, oh, I better stock up because I don't know when I'm going to be back at the liquor store. But because I wasn't working at the liquor store, I was like, oh, I got to preserve. I can't drink that much. So deep quarantine for me, I consider April 4th. I stopped applying to jobs. I was like, oh, I'm obviously not going to go on these PA jobs. No one's doing anything. So here was basically my standard day in deep quarantine. Every other day, I would run 2 to 3 miles on the treadmill. I believe I first got to 3 miles on the treadmill during quarantine, which was awesome. And now that's like a standard for me. I'm like, yeah, that's an average run. But 3 miles was huge for me. And every other day I would run because it would make me feel like I did something. So I would wake up, I would run, take a shower, eat breakfast, or eat a better breakfast than the little nippy stuff I used to have before I ran. I would be sore. You probably like an egg and bacon or something. And then I would meditate, kind of. I kind of got into meditating because it seemed like something we should do in quarantine. But really what I would do is I would lay on my bed, put on my headphones, I would listen to ASMR videos and just space out. Really, I would like also edit my movie at the beginning. But then when it started to get warmer out, I was like, I don't feel like sitting here. I don't want to look at this stupid movie anymore. And obviously that passed. But like sometimes I would go for a walk with my mom walking the dog. I would read a ton. Then in the afternoon, I would kind of get back into my movie, but I would hate it. Like, oh, the real highlight of my quarantine around April is when my dad's girlfriend said, hey, this podcast that I listened to said that they're looking for an editor. Why don't you reach out to them? I do audio primarily, but I had never thought about working for a podcast before. It was always like audio and film. And I just cold emailed them. I guess it's not cold if they were looking for somebody, but I emailed them out of the blue and I said, I'm an editor. I have very reasonable rates, even though I didn't know what my rate would be at all. And so Kate from the Seltzer Squad got back to me and was like, hey, that's awesome. How about I send you our next episode, have you edit it for us, and I'll see if it works out. I had to look up how to edit a podcast. She asked that I use Adobe Audition, which I had never really used before. And I taught myself Audition. And she said, yeah, sounds awesome. I had to ask a Facebook group what my rate should be. And they said, whatever you think your time is worth. And I'm still with them. It's been almost 40 episodes, I think, that I've been with them. I think it was 73 was the first one. It was called Cali Sober. And now I'm like part of the show. And that like really saved me. Because it gave me something concrete to be like, this is my job. It needs to be up by Friday. And it also gave me something to procrastinate my movie with. And now I'm like, oh yeah, I want to edit podcasts. That's what I want to do. So that was a gift. I dyed my hair more this past year than I have my entire life before that, being 0 times. And I've dyed my hair 4 times this year, I think. I did like a blue thing as like training wheels dyeing my hair because it really only lasted like 3 days. It was like color conditioner and it straight up washed out in 3 days. Also, I have brown hair, so it didn't really look like anything. Then I did like a purple red in the early summer, and then I did full red in the late summer. That was fun. And then when the red faded to like orange, I dyed it. You can't tell because everything is pink, but it's kind of similar to my natural hair color now. This year I got really obsessed with Poshmark. Selling, but mostly buying. Before COVID, I was like, these are things that I can wear to parties. As if I had that many parties anyway. But then it became like loungewear and stuff. I really went from like, in college I was like, why do people buy clothing so much? You don't need to. It's wasteful. It's bad for the environment. And I kind of played that off with like, yeah, but they're all used clothes. Like, it's not coming from a manufacturer, but it still needs to be shipped to me. So I kind of put limits on myself of like, I need to sell an amount of clothing to be able to buy any clothing. I also got kind of into eBay. My aunt and uncle dropped off 3 crates of records in like May. Not great records, as I learned from this guy I met on Facebook, who was like, here, I want to buy records. I was like, I don't know if you want any of these. And he's like, even if I don't want them, I'll tell you which ones are worth anything. And he was like, I don't want any of these. I mean, with the Bee Gees revival that's been happening for the past couple months, I sold all the Bee Gees records. I bought a pack of 50 record boxes because I was like, I'm tired of MacGyvering record-sized boxes out of regular boxes. And as soon as I ran out of them, I was like, that's it. I'm done. I'm not doing that anymore. May is very specific for me because it was the kind of the breach out of, well, it's warm out. We can see each other outside if we stay apart. I was kind of keeping up my running thing, but then around my birthday, I kind of faded out with that a little bit. Anyway, Mother's Day came. My mom set up chairs 6 feet apart. My grandma, my aunt, a couple of my aunts and cousins came over and we all sat far apart. And until I was like, you don't have to put all the chairs 6 feet apart. People who came in the same car can sit next to each other. Like, that's what I mean. We were all like tiptoeing. We were like, oh, I don't know what do we do at 6 feet? There were a lot of Zoom parties. That was the Zoom party time. My birthday is very specific to me. It was hot. That was the first hot day. It was like, I don't know, people might make fun of me, like high 70s. And so I wore pants with rips in them because I'd been wearing pants like the whole time. I think I'm the only person who put on jeans every day during quarantine, unless I really was like, it's pajama day. I picked up Baz. It was hot. My air conditioner was not working. I was wearing jeans. We went to Palisades Park, but we didn't really. We got Chipotle. We went to somewhere in Palisades Park where it was way too busy for us. And then we sat on a park bench, ate Chipotle, and came home. I came back. My friend Ashley brought me like a bunch of gifts, which was very sweet. And then I was like, it's my birthday, I'm having a party. So I had a Zoom party and I did get very drunk that day. There were a lot more Zoom parties at the beginning, but that one I remember specifically. And May was a lot of sitting outside reading. Well, I read the last 2 books of the Da Vinci Code series, but then the really iconic book of quarantine for me was The Stand by Stephen King, which, bless the lords, they are making a series of. I'm so excited. You have no idea how excited I am. I was just like, A, I want to torture myself by reading a book about a plague, and B, when am I ever going to have this much time again? And I knocked it out in like, honestly, not an impressive amount of time. Like, for the amount of nothing I was doing other than reading, I should have finished it way faster. And I would sit on my porch every day with my sunglasses. I liked sitting in the front because then I would see people walking. And that is like the piece of media for quarantine. And now I get to watch it in a show and I'm psyched about it. Was it May that the protests primarily started? I went to 2 protests and that started to scare me a little bit. Not the protests, but COVID. Everyone was wearing masks, although I took this picture and the West Orange one. But for the most, I mean, the West Orange one was pretty empty compared to the Nutley one. I then was like, I should get a COVID test. I was just around a lot of people. That was my first COVID test, was in June. It was a drive-through. I had to do it myself. And as I was like, there were like tears pouring out of my eyes involuntarily. The person was like, all right, when you pull yourself together, now do the other nostril. I went to the beach with my friends. We went to Sandy Hook. It was pretty empty. I had been so used to wearing pants that I wear fucking pants to the beach. They had rips in them, but still. It was hot enough I should have worn shorts. And honestly, I should have brought a bathing suit just in case, and I didn't. Around this time, I developed a weird skin rash. After the first protest I went to, I went in my pool and I was like, why am I breaking out in hives? Why am I itchy all over my legs? So I was like, must be the chlorine. Then I went to the beach in July and the same thing happened, but way worse. And it turns out I have cold urticaria. So basically, when I go in cold water, or now that it's winter, anytime I'm exposed to cold air for too long, I break out in hives. So that's cute. Love that for me. I went back to work in June. It was fine. It was not like that first day, like right before I quit, where everyone thought that the liquor stores were going to shut down. That was pre-masks. So it was fine. It was mostly fine. I didn't mind going back to work. I never got my unemployment. So that's cute. Oh yeah, Baz's birthday was in July. We played Jackbox and we watched Arrested Development. July 4th, I went to my aunt's house. We hung out outside, ate really good food. Yeah, August we did a lot of hanging outside as friends. We did a lot of hiking, some beaching, but not as much beaching. There was a day in Asbury Park where when we got there, put in a reservation at a restaurant, went to the beach for like 45 minutes, mostly waited for our table though because we got back too early, sat at the table, it immediately started pouring, and then as soon as it stopped raining, we just went back to the car and went home. I don't know what the moral of that story was. I did a shoot with my friend. There's a couple people who worked on my film, and then some people that I went to school with who I didn't know when I was at school. I could not tell you what it was about, but it was a short film. It all took place on this white cyclorama. Is that what it's called? It was a weird experience going back to a film set. We all had masks, obviously, and I brought all my own equipment, so no one touched anything that I had to touch. It went well. Like I said, it was fine. People were safe. It was just a weird experience. I got a queen bed. That was a perk of this year. I went from a twin bed to a queen bed. Moved my room around. Baz helped me move my room around because originally my bed was sticking out over here. We went to a drive-in movie in August. That was fun because I was missing movies. I was missing things with my friends. We got Wendy's on the way there. We saw The Rental and Relic. Relic, I would say, was definitely the better movie of the two. I got a new babysitting job where originally I was just bringing this girl, Leona, to gymnastics. And then when school started, I just had to like hang out with her while she was in Zoom school while her mom was working from home to keep her company. And then in September, I got a message from someone I used to work with at the New York Film Academy saying, if they're hiring, do you want me to put in a word for you? And I said, yeah, sure. I mean, it's COVID time. I don't know how I feel about going into the city, but I'll cross that bridge when I come to it. Yeah, sure, put my name in there. And they did get back to me. They said, hey, do you want to come in for an interview? I said, yeah. That was the first time I was on a bus in like 7 months. Very short interview compared to the first time I worked at NIFA a couple of years ago. And he was like, yeah, I think you're a fine fit. Plus you're on the payroll already. So that makes things way easier. And I was like, so I had like a choice to make. I was like, should I be going to the city for work? Should I leave my liquor store job? We're friends with the people who own the liquor store, so I kind of felt bad. But I also didn't. And I was trying to keep up both and babysitting. And I very quickly left the liquor store. I kind of let it drag on a little bit. And there was a point in September where I was like, this is too much. I'm done. So by mid-October, I had quit the liquor store. Really beginning of November, because I did work for Thanksgiving. I worked on Thanksgiving, but that was it. Like before that, I had quit the first day of November. The day after Halloween was my last official shift or something like that. It was too much work with babysitting, New York Film Academy, and the Seltzer Squad. I kind of like my commute now that I'm not taking the bus anymore because everything's empty. So I take the train, New Jersey Transit, and then I take the PATH train to World Trade Center, which is close to my job. PATH is nice. Coming into World Trade Center versus I used to come into Port Authority is just a world of difference. The last couple months have been kind of a shit show for me personally. Just my SO had kind of a ongoing crisis that really took a lot out of me. We're kind of on the upswing of that now, knock wood, so that's good. But November and half to most of December were kind of awful. Like I remember it sort of culminated on the day of the election, and everyone was like, are you stressed out about the election? And I was like, I can't even think about the election right now. Same with the day that it was announced. Things were okay. Things had kind of gone on like a little upswing at that point, but I couldn't even be that happy about it because I was like, that's not even on my radar right now. December's been all right. We got back to Zoom parties. I've had 3 COVID scares now. The mom of the girl I babysit was positive. I had to take 2 weeks off of work. I found out, she texted me while I was in a class at New York Film Academy, and I just left. And my friend who I used to work with, who got me the job, is the like COVID the safety manager now. So we talked about it. He was like, yeah, I think you need to leave. So I got 2 weeks mostly unpaid vacation, but it was kind of nice. Like I felt like I needed it. I felt like I was just going nonstop, which is funny to think about after the long break that we had. Then my mom's boss at the liquor store had COVID, which ended up not affecting me because they were always distant and wearing masks when they were at the store. I wear a mask when babysitting, but the mom, they don't wear masks when I'm babysitting. Now they do. Since then, I've asked the mom to, but that's why it was more of a concern. And then the third time, my mom saw a friend of hers who ended up becoming positive. That was very recent, and it's fine. So as far as my bucket list goes, like I said, I was able to actually get a good amount of stuff done. My goal was to read the news at least 4 times a week, and I just gave that up. I was doing it, but I was like, I don't want to think about the news right now. And then the other one I didn't do was get a passport because I don't own a passport. I wanted to get a savings account under my name because my savings account was under my parents' supervision. I wanted to get a credit card, and now I have a credit card with Sallie Mae, so my benefits go toward my loans. I wanted to run 2 5Ks, and I did. They were virtual, obviously, so I didn't do a 5K the way I wanted to do a 5K, which was I was going to do what's called Nikki's Run. My dad's friends run that run. And then the other one is the Lincoln Tunnel 5K, which was supposed to be through the Lincoln Tunnel. I did under 35 minutes for both of them. The first one was under 30, which is crazy. Like that was my peak running season. Crushed it. That was on the track. It was finally warm enough and empty enough that I could go to the track. So happy about that. The second one was about 35 minutes, and I wanted to get a real job. Some people would consider New York Film Academy a real job. It's still minimum wage, though. Maybe it is, because sometimes I do just do sound on the students' projects or whatever. But I would definitely consider the podcast as a real job, because that really made me be like, oh, that's what I want to do. I really thought I was going to watch more movies and more TV and more everything. Like I said, I was literally just laying on my bed watching listening to YouTube videos. The Stand was the biggest part of that. And then I also am almost done reading The Witching Hour by Anne Rice. I read 25 books this year. That was crazy. That's the most books I've ever read in a year. Like, I know people who read a lot of books are probably like, eh. Like, I think according to Goodreads, I read like 9,000 pages or something like that. I read The Stand, which is 1,200 pages, and I read 90% of The Witching Hour, which is about 900 pages. We also had a book club for a while. Well, my dad's family used to have a book club before I was born. And then for Christmas last year, he gave everyone a copy of The Giver, one of my favorite books. We had a meeting right when coronavirus was a thing, but before it made its way to the US, because I remember drinking a Corona at the first book club meeting and everyone being like, ooh, Corona. We kind of kept it up via Zoom. We read The Giver, Origin by Dan Brown, White Fragility, The Kite Runner, and then now we're reading The Parable of the Sower. I don't know. The Stand kind of overshadows everything else just because how much I loved it. I did not watch that many movies this year. We watched Contagion, as I told you. I saw a lot of Oscar noms from last year when we could still go to the movies in like January, February. And this past month, I've seen Home Alone, which I had never seen before. Not once, but twice. Great movie. Fantastic film. In quarantine, I was not in the movies. And my dad and my dad's girlfriend and I each made a list of movies we wanted to watch in quarantine, and we just kept not getting to it. We watched Midsommar, which I love. I made them watch The Big Short. I just watched The Social Network. That was like 3 weeks ago. That was not that long ago. So TV, I finally finished The Good Place. That's not a new show, but it's a show that I finished. I watched The Politician, but I didn't even finish The Politician. I just watched the first season, which in my mind should be a complete unit, you know? I know it leads up to him being an adult or whatever, but the whole first unit is just so batshit that I can't comprehend any more of it. My mom and I watched Work in Progress, which is why I started watching The Politician, because the guy from Work in Progress is in The Politician. And we watched Afterlife. That's definitely peak April, May quarantine watching TV with my mom. I don't like Ricky Gervais as a guy, but it's a great show. Schitt's Creek has definitely been the show of the year, I feel like. I know it didn't come out this year by any means. My mom and I, at first we started watching, we were like, this is alright. My mom got super into it. I haven't found that grab that everyone else seems to have. And Patriot Act. I mean, when he tried to do his no studio audience thing, I tried watching it and it's just not the same. He is just such a stand-up presence. But great show. So here's my top 10 albums of the year. In no particular order, albums that I listen to a lot or that I listen to at any defining moment in the year go as follows. Inner Visions by Stevie Wonder. Pageant Material, Casey Musgraves. Blue by Joni Mitchell. Sometimes I Sit and Think and Sometimes I Just Sit by Courtney Barnett. Automatic for the People by R.E.M. London O, Hole 4 by the Housemartins. Surf's Up by the Beach Boys. The Stranger by Billy Joel. Captain Fantastic and the Brown Dirt Cowboy by Elton John, and What's Going On by Marvin Gaye. I started the year with the Housemartins. That was a CD that my dad gave me for Christmas last year, because my dad always gives me CDs for my car. I think years into the future, if I hear the Housemartins, I'm going to be like, that's 2020. They have a song called Anxious, and that just really speaks to me. The past few months since working for New York Film Academy, Courtney Barnett, R.E.M., and Joni Mitchell's Blue have been hardcore my path music. The Stranger I was really listening to, I got back into when I was watching The Politician, because he did a cover of Vienna, which I really love. Surf's Up is definitely summer. A lot of Beach Boys. And then Inner Visions just reminds me of bringing my friend to her school so she could go to Ireland. That was right before everything went to shit. Oh, YouTubers I got really into this year. D'Angelo Wallace, Useful Charts, Legal Eagle, Bailey Sarian, Casey Ionzo, Jarvis Johnson. Who am I forgetting? Honestly, the real highlight of this year was a YouTuber who does tarot cards called... what's her name? She never says her name. That's the problem. Indigo Mystery. She does tarot card readings. That's who I would listen to out in space. I don't care what star sign she's talking about. If it doesn't apply to me, I don't care. I could listen to her talk for hours. She's a real MVP. Podcast, I'll throw it in. Why not? Steffi Should Know. I'm 10 years late on that. Stuff they don't want you to know. Getting Curious, Seltzer Squad, obviously. Home Cooking. Oh, that's another movie another show my mom and I watched. Salt, Fat, Acid, Heat. I didn't play a lot of games this year. I mean, obviously Among Us just took the world by storm this year, but unpopular opinion, I don't like Among Us. It's fun in theory, but the idea of stopping whatever I'm doing to play it, I'm like, ugh, I'd rather play something else. Which is funny because I'm so good at it. I have a couple New Year's resolutions for 2021 I've been thinking about. I'm done seeking validation from other people. Like, I'm constantly doing it. I like take a picture of something that I did and send it to whoever, praying that they'll be like, oh my God, yes, oh my God, that's so good for you. But I'm done with it. I'm done with it. And it's so hard because I always think, I'm like, oh, I just did this thing. I just had this funny thought. Kind of in the same vein, I'm tired of feeding relationships where it's the other person is not reciprocating for one reason or another. Like, yeah, done with that. Those are kind of spacey. Those are kind of out there. As far as concrete things, I want to try to make it to 10K running, which sounds insane, but it's only 3 more miles ish. And I also want to read more classics. And I got to finish my movie. Oh, God. Oh, I don't want to let a whole year have passed since I shot my movie, but I'm running into technical difficulties exporting it. Excuses. I got a pen pal this year. That was nice. That's it. I'm hoping this year's better. In the grand scheme of things, my year was fine, but so much other shit happened in the world that I can't even be like, it was a fine year, like it wasn't a fine year. I've gained like a weird influx of subscribers, so maybe people actually will watch this. I don't know where you people are coming from because I haven't posted in like a year, but if that's you, welcome. Yeah, that's it. I hope we have a better one.